Welcome back everyone to another NRG, this time back to the Super Nintendo, and here we are with Raiden Trad, or Raiden Densetsu as it's known in Japan. Trad is an odd name and it's a bit unclear why it's called that. This is obviously a home port of the classic 1990 shoot 'em up by Seibu and Kaihatsu. I'll get it right in a minute. I'm terrible with Japanese names, I do apologise. Of Raiden, which is a fantastic shoot 'em up back in the day, a great hit. It really was. So the attack of the evil Cranassians in 2090, I believe this is set. The environment looks very clean for 2090, doesn't it? Anyway, we are in the supersonic Raiden Jet Thunder Fighter, whatever you want to call it. And this is the Super Nintendo's interpretation of it, brought to us in 1992 by Micronics. Now, out of the home ports, personally, this is probably the poorest. For many reasons, and we'll get to them as we go through. Let's look at the positives first. The positives are, at least it tries to recreate the soundtrack of the original arcade. The tune is the same, the melody is the same, which is good. It's obviously not as well produced as the original arcade, but it makes a good effort. The screen is certainly a lot wider. The original arcade was a very narrow, the traditional narrow look, narrow aspect vertical shooter. So we're a little bit wider in this version of the game. That's to its detriment because it kind of takes something away from it. There's a few things actually this port takes away from the original that is a detriment. And one thing, as you probably already noticed if you're a fan of the original, is how short the level is. Yeah, there's been a lot of shortcuts made to this version, which is a damn pity. It still has the 2-player mode. It still has the 8 stages, the full 8 stages, unlike the Genesis version, which does have 9 stages, but doesn't have the 2-player, and the FM Towns version, which is probably the best version, home version, should I say. But I don't think any of them can touch the arcade quality. As you can see there, the destruction of the first boss was particularly easy. But it's not. It's very inconsistent. That's the thing. The whole thing is very inconsistent. Bosses are particularly either massively easy or massively difficult, and there's a real weird sort of differential in speed of the bullets that are flying around the screen. Some of them can shoot at you so bloody quick you have no chance to get out of the way, or even predict where it's going to go. Some of them extremely slow and very predictable. The amount of enemy sprites on screen is extremely low and infrequent too. There's lots of quiet time going on, lots of sort of gentle scrolling along, waiting for the next enemy to show up. And that doesn't mean to say it's easier. I mean, like I said, parts of it are easy, but there are sequences where it just gets ridiculously difficult, and all of a sudden you can get shot in the head, in the cockpit, out of nowhere. So the rapid of bullets shot by the enemies as well is also very infrequent and nowhere near as populous as in the arcade. The scrolling is smooth enough for the Super Nintendo, but no, again, it doesn't have the fluidity, it doesn't have the enjoyment, the franticness of the arcade. And generally the mechanics just work so well in the arcade, it just seems all a little bit awkward and a little bit stunted on the SNES. Obviously there's massive slowdown occasionally when too much is going on the screen. It's very noticeable as well and not welcome. Graphics are okay. They're well done. They represent they're faithful to the original game. Not bad at all. They're a little bit should I say simple, I guess is probably the word I would use. Yeah, but it's just lacking that magic that the original arcade had. It's something about it that just bugs me. It bugs the bug. Like little things like that. A delayed explosion there, so that the imprint that a big enemy would leave in the ground is just slightly delayed there. It's like an animation frame has been skipped or something. That's annoying. Micronics had a reputation for being a little bit shortcutty with their ports, and this one is no exception. The lack of enemies is just annoying. The shortness of the stages, the cuts that have been made. There are so many sequences that you're familiar with in the arcade that are just completely missing from this. The level of depth there with the overlying roadway was kind of nice. He's the second boss, who's a lot harder than the first boss. So I'm just going to give him a load of bombs, I think. But again, you can see the noticeable slowdown with all the bullets and movement and enemy sprites moving around. There is noticeable slowdown. Sound effects again are way away from the original arcade. very simplistic compared. Very simplistic compared. The original arcade seems a complete symphony of arcade effects when it comes to sound, as opposed to SNES. The SNES could do a lot better than this. I've seen shooters that have done extremely well on the SNES, such as Axlay, such as R-Type 3. This is not one of them, unfortunately. It's a bit of a letdown. See, Raiden fans, if they had a Super Nintendo back in the day, they would have appreciated the effort, I guess. At least appreciated the effort to try and bring it closer to the original arcade. The problem is, it's just inconsistent in so many aspects. Look, there's this massive bit at the beginning here. Any enemies? Oh right, there's one, there's two, and there we go. So there's this huge delay before enemies come into screen. Also, the switch between respawn points and instant respawn is very noticeable in this. The original game, of course, if you got destroyed, you would respawn at a checkpoint, an invisible checkpoint. In this version of the game, you blow up and you immediately respawn, which is really disorientating, especially because you immediately respawn with your weapons reset to the level 1. So that's, at least the arcade gives you the chance to sort of like grab a power up before the next wave of enemies come around by respawning you back at a checkpoint. No checkpoints in this. It just respawns you instantly and you're off again with your lowest grade weapon. Annoying. That's very annoying because you could lose a succession of lives instantly. You get killed once and all of a sudden, bang, you respawn on top of another enemy and boom, you're dead already. You've got a few seconds grace of invulnerability, of course, like all instant respawns. Most instant respawns, should I say. But again, it's not what the game is known for. So when you're looking at something like Raiden 5, which has an energy bar instead, that's fine because you're used to the fact that you're not actually going to die multiple times. In this, when you die, you generally die once or twice in a succession if you're not really on your metal. And again, there's not a lot of other movement, other sort of like effects going on the ground either. I mean, with the original game, you've got like soldiers moving around, tanks moving around, vehicles and other things that are sort of like background noise. With this, very basic, very stilted. There's no glowing, lights or anything. It's pretty boring when you compare it to the original. It's a disappointing port. It's a shame. There, I've died again. So I think we'll leave it there. Raiden Trad or Raiden Densetsu on the Super Nintendo, 1992. Bit of a shame. Novabug, out.